This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Marriott's on the move.
What?
Marriott's on the move.
Again?
Marriott's on the move.
If you're dreaming about moving to a new city to pursue the life of your dreams, this podcast is for you. Moving 18 times in 23 years to 5 of America's top cities, I know it's not easy to make those decisions alone. I help you develop the dream, the plan, and the move, even if we need to get scrappy to get you there. I'll be doing interviews, career and city spotlights, and sharing my crazy moving stories, tips, tricks, and scams to avoid. Traveling to explore your dreams has never been easier. Now let's get moving. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I am super excited for today's special release episode. I have Trisha Tayan, who is a career wellness coach who helps professional, ambitious women who have chronic illnesses and want to be successful and have a successful, purposeful, fulfilling, and rewarding career. She's unique because in addition to addressing career challenges, she also integrates wellness management strategies with core energy coaching, which you know I love everything energy coaching. While she's not a doctor or a medical professional, she can offer guidance from her own experience in managing health and career. Now, Trisha has over 25 years of human resources experience, including talent management, career development, coaching, training, and energy leadership index master practitioner. She is ELI and MP certified. She has lived with chronic illness most of her adult life. She, starting in her mid-20s, being diagnosed with an undifferentiated connective tissue disease, and then systemic lupus. I can't even say the end part of this, the lupus thing. You'll have to say that for me. But it led to chronic kidney disease and then end-stage renal disease. So she had a kidney transplant. We're going to talk a little bit about her story. But she's experienced countless flare-ups with lupus, was on dialysis, and most recently was grateful and fortunate to celebrate her third kidney-versary of receiving that new kidney transplant, all while pursuing her career and launching her coaching practice. So I love her because she is in my accountability pod. We have had Kara Taylor on the show. We have had Natalie Luke on the show, and she rounds out the trifecta of perfection of the women that I love to spend my Sunday mornings with. Trisha, welcome to the show.
Oh, Mariette, thank you so much for the introduction and sharing a little bit about my story, as well as having me on your show. I feel so special, and it's really fantastic to be here.
Well, you are wonderful. You are on the East Coast with me, so you are in Maryland, right?
Well, right now I'm in Pennsylvania.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
But
you moved from Maryland to Pennsylvania.
I did.
And that was one of the cool stories that we were talking about before we hit record, because you actually made that move while you were on dialysis.
Yes.
So we are doing this episode for a total different reason, which I can't wait to tell you guys all about at the end of the episode. We're going to get into that and what she's just creating some virtual magic for everybody, and it's all free. So we're going to talk about that at the end of the episode. But when we were talking about how, robustness being mental and physical strength, how that affects a move and how you have to take that very seriously. And then also your ecosystem, the community you're moving from and the community you're moving to. And when you need to have things in that community, especially for your health to thrive, it can be pretty impactful if you don't. So I would love for you to share your story. I mean, I know there's a lot of acronyms on the autoimmunes that we were talking about. So you might have to repeat those because I could not say those. I'm good at some medical terms, but not all. But tell us a little bit about that story.
Well, thanks for asking, and I'm happy to share. So as Mariette mentioned, my professional background has been in human resources. So I've been HR practitioner, leader, manager for many, many decades, and had always wanted to, have a career in a business-like setting. I didn't grow up in a family where, people worked in offices. It was pretty much a blue collar type of family, and parents had some college, but they hadn't graduated. So those were a couple of immediate goals that I wanted to achieve. I graduate from college and then I always, as a little girl, I always imagined myself working at a desk. I don't know what that meant, but it's just like this businesswoman working at a
Right.
desk, and that ended up to be an HR career. But very early on, at the beginning of my career, when I was in my mid-20s, as you had mentioned, I started experiencing some symptoms that I didn't recognize, and they were pretty much arthritic in nature. So I'd come home from work and my hands would be really swollen. I couldn't make a fist, let alone hold a fork or a writing instrument. And then my feet would be balloons. They were just so painful. And it really puzzled me because, again, I was in my mid-20s. I had always been super active in high school as well as college, always doing extracurricular activities, and had little part-time jobs to have some extra money. And so I was
Yeah.
always a pretty busy person. So when I started experiencing these symptoms, it was very puzzling. And then fatigue set in as well. And it didn't matter how much sleep that I got. I just was tired all
Oh,
the time.
yeah.
And people who have immuno disorders or immune disorders can pretty much probably relate to this, that the fatigue
Yeah.
is terrible. And being in
Fatigue
your
is
mid
different than
20s,
being tired. Yeah, like, it's just such
yes,
a different experience.
you go to bed tired, you wake up tired, and you're just always tired, and you don't understand, especially if you're in your mid 20s. So I thought, well,
Mhm.
is it, at the time we were eating a lot of chicken, so I thought, am I eating too much chicken? It was like silly things like that, and you're
Yeah.
just trying different things. But it took me about 3 doctors, which is pretty good because a lot of people with
Yeah.
immune disorders, sometimes it takes them 6 doctors, a
Yeah.
dozen
A
doctors,
decade. Yeah.
yeah, and years before they receive a diagnosis. But it took me, as I say, only 3 doctors
Yeah.
to find out that I had lupus. But initially, you mentioned undifferentiated connective tissue disease. She didn't want to diagnose me with lupus right away, but that's ended up being what I was diagnosed with. And what lupus is, it is an autoimmune disorder, for those of you who don't know what it is. And it's where, like many autoimmune disorders, your immune system doesn't only attack the bad cells in your body, or the disease, or viruses, what have you, in your body, but it also attacks the good cells. And since your whole body is made up of cells, that could be attacking anything. So
Yeah.
for me, throughout my career, I had many, many flare-ups, and they affected different parts of my body, and they were lupus flare-ups. And if I look back on those flare-ups, they were probably stress related, which at the
Mm.
time I didn't recognize, or if I did recognize, I probably wouldn't admit it. I even had
Right.
some people try to tell me that maybe it was stress. And I was just so focused on, wanting to grow my career and be this working woman, that I ignored it.
Mhm.
But that's kind of where the story started with my career and my illness. And then so throughout my career, like I said, I had many different flare-ups. And then the very last major flare-up I had, it was called lupus nephritis. So I
Mm.
actually found myself being directed to go to the hospital because my kidneys were on the brink of failing.
Oh my
So that
God.
was that
Heartbreaking.
was pretty much a shocker. But I ended up being in the hospital for about 3 weeks. The first couple weeks were pretty scary because my body wasn't responding to the treatments that they were administering to me. And it got to the point where the nephrologist started talking to me about more drastic measures like dialysis and transplant at that point. And but fortunately, my body did start responding to the treatments about that third week. So after 3 weeks, I was able to go home with a bag full of medication
That's
to keep my kidney function stable. So I was good for quite some time. But then in 2016, every time I went to the nephrologist, my kidney function showed signs that it was decreasing, and that kept happening. We tried to stabilize it. That wasn't happening. So the doctor suggested I get on a transplant list so I could start accumulating time, which was kind of hard to
That just like
accept.
messes with your brain. You're like, wait, are we really there yet? And they're like, no, you're there like 6 months ago. We just didn't put you on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate you mentioning that point because I thought, we could stabilize this. We did it last time, and I was thinking, oh,
Yeah.
we're just doing it for preventative measures and, so I
Right.
can, just in case.
Yeah.
But then, about 6 months later, he said to start thinking about what type of dialysis I would want to go on, and I didn't want to go on dialysis, but it was getting to that point. But that was really hard to accept. That was harder to accept than getting on a transplant list. And all of the educational material he gave me to help me decide on what kind of dialysis that I wanted to go on, every time I tried to look at it, I started crying because it
Yeah,
was
of
just really
course.
hard.
Yeah.
But all I knew was that I wanted to keep working and I
Hmm.
needed to keep working so I could, of course, pay for my
Have
medical
insurance.
care.
Yeah.
Yes, and have
Yeah.
insurance. So fortunately, there are forms of dialysis that you can administer yourself and be able to do it at home and have the flexibility that I really wanted to have. So I did around 20, I guess it was 17. I went on dialysis. I guess it was about early 2018 is when I went on dialysis and was on dialysis for about 3 years. And then, as you mentioned, I, recently celebrated my third anniversary of receiving my kidney transplant. So I was lucky, or I feel like I was really lucky to have received my kidney after only 3 years of being on a transplant list. Because when I got on the transplant list, they told me my wait would be anywhere from 5 to 8 years.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
yeah, but we were earlier before the taping here. We were talking about mindset, right?
Yeah.
And I had it in my head that I wanted to get a transplant early. I didn't know how it's going to happen, but I just had in my head I'm going to get it early.
Yeah.
And I tried to do some donor campaigns to try to find a living donor, and I had a couple bites, but that didn't happen. But I got it after 3 years, so it's
Like
like
Kara,
it's
like
still
Kara
so
says,
surreal.
yeah, don't worry about the how, worry about
Yeah,
the what or
exactly.
something like that. Like that
Yes,
actually works. It actually
yeah,
works.
it does.
Holy
It
cow.
does. But during that time, so we mentioned, yes, where I live. I right now I live in Pennsylvania, but when I got the on the transplant list at the time, I was living in Maryland. So I did feel fortunate because I wasn't that far away from Johns Hopkins, and they're known
Oh,
for their transplant program. So I felt pretty lucky. And the University of Maryland is also known for their transplant
good.
program too, and they're right next to each other. I was only able to get on one because the way the transplant system works is there's different regions, and you can only be on one list per region.
Mhm.
But I was really fortunate to be there. But I was on dialysis, as you mentioned, when I moved to Pennsylvania, and that was in, let's see, 2019 is when I
Well, how does it work?
moved.
Because I think of dialysis. I think you're going to a center somewhere, they're
Oh, yeah.
cleaning your blood. Like what is like are there different types of dialysis?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for asking. So yes, I did
It's okay.
mention there are different types of dialysis. So the type that I went on, it's called peritoneal dialysis. So it was when I was able to do at home. I could do it overnight. So it was an overnight process. In preparation for it, though, I had to have a catheter placed in my abdomen to be able to do the procedure. So that was just like an outpatient procedure, but you have this little tube hanging out of your abdomen. So as you can probably imagine, it's your body's open. It's another
Slightly uncomfortable.
opening to the inside of
Yeah.
your body. So you have to keep it very clean and sanitary. So that's a whole thing to learn how to
Yeah.
maintain that. And then also I had to learn how to do the procedure. So it involved having a machine that warmed up these bags of dialysate, and the dialysate would be pumped into my peritoneum, and then the toxins are attracted by the dialysate, which is essentially like a sugar water, maybe to in layman's terms to put it.
Yeah.
So if you think about like a strawberry, right? And if you put sugar on a strawberry and how the liquid, how it becomes more liquid, that's kind of how this process works.
Have you heard of Monat or Modern Nature? I hadn't either before my friend Monica was raving about their skincare products that she's obsessed with. I took their hair quiz to find out which product line would be best for me since I just happen to be looking for new shampoo and conditioner, and I signed up for their VIP package that got me a little bit of everything to try out. Turns out they are the first anti-aging hair care line in the world, which I didn't even know was a thing, and their products are gluten-free, vegan, and Leaping Bunny certified, which means they're never tested on animals. Now I'm obsessed with their rich formulations that feature botanical extracts, essential oils, and other naturally based ingredients, and I want to share those products with you. I'll put the link in the show notes, or you can hit the faves page on my website. It's safe, EU approved, and clinically tested by third parties, so essentially, robustness approved. Now back to the show.
Boom. Play it.
Have you ever listened to a commercial on the radio or a podcast and thought, I could totally do that? Well, I am challenging you today. Being a voiceover artist is an amazing side hustle that can be done from the comforts of your own home. Heck, it can be an amazing career. Just ask Jesse Carroll. Jesse's got over 1,000 voiceover credits to his name. Ever watch Backroad Truckers? He's the narrator. He's also done a ton of commercials for brands you would definitely recognize. If you're ready to try your hand at voiceovers, go to marriottsonthemove.com and head to my favorites page to learn more about his new digital course and coaching package. If you use code MOTM, you'll get 20% off at checkout.
Hey, Micah Burgess here. I just wanted to drop in for a second and let you guys know that we are rebranding my podcast. We've got a new name, My Doula Micah, my birth, my baby, my life. And we are super excited about extending the content that we've got going from childbirth to postpartum. Now we're including family and marriage and just kind of your life in these childbearing years and what that looks like, and maybe give some helpful tips and wisdom. I mean, you know, I'm 51. I got 6 kids. I think I can help you guys with some stuff. There will still be local interviews, of course. And I'm also expanding now to have including more nationwide interviews. We even have somebody from Canada and Australia. So I'm super excited about this process and what we've got in store for y'all. So join us.
So then after the overnight process, you know, the toxins are flushed out of my body. So so that was a way that I was able to do dialysis at home and not have to go to um, uh, a center for the procedure, because that's something I didn't want to do, because of course I mentioned I worked and I didn't want to have to, you know, it's bad enough you have to manage your regular doctor's appointments and you have to manage your lab, you know, regular lab appointments, you know, especially when you have some type of chronic condition, you know, that you're always being monitored and you want to know where you stand as well. And I just didn't want to have to do that either. I wanted to have the flexibility.
Yeah. And so as
Yeah.
if that wasn't stressful enough, you were like, you know what? I should move, right? So what was it
Well, the
like
way,
moving? Yeah, when you're in the middle of dialysis, like that's crazy.
yeah. Yeah, and the reason why I moved, it was for another job. Actually, I moved to
Oh.
Maryland for a job, and then and then when I moved back to Pennsylvania, it was for a job. And yeah, that was a whole other thing to manage in addition to um, you know, managing moving, you know, my whole household goods and, you know, all the things you have to think about, as you mentioned in, you know, your other podcast, that you have to take into consideration when you're moving. But this was, you know, I had to think about making sure I transferred all the delivery of my supplies, because I would get these monthly deliveries of my supplies for my dialysis treatments. So make sure I transferred those. I had to find another dialysis center because even though I did it at home, I would still need to do monthly check-ins with a dialysis nurse so she could make sure my catheter placement was still okay, check my levels. I would also check in with a doctor, make sure my levels were functioning properly. So the one I found, the closest one was about 45
45
away. So
minutes
not the
away?
most, yeah, not the
Oh,
most convenient.
yeah.
But if I wanted to stay within the same system that I started with in Maryland, that was the closest one.
Well,
So
and
that
you were
was a
moving
whole other
across
thing to
state.
manage.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're moving across state lines, so that had to, you were very lucky that the system had that
Yes,
the system was in two
yes,
states. I mean, what would you have
right.
done if it wasn't? Would you have had to change systems and everything?
Yeah, yeah. I think I would
Yeah.
have to change systems.
Like looking back
Yeah,
on
it's
that
basically the vendor,
decision.
right? That's helping with. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, looking back on that decision and like moving for the job, do you think it was a
Hmm.
good move? Or do you think like in hindsight, you would have like stuck it out until you were done with all this?
Do you mean done with dialysis?
Yeah, well, like done with your procedures and getting all of the
Yeah.
treatment.
Well, what's interesting is that's an interesting question because I do think about
Do you?
sometimes, about not only the the move as it relates to my health, but even the move as it relates to my career. Because it, as you know, and I'll share it with the audience, the job that I moved for to Pennsylvania, I was with that company for 5 years, and then fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, at the end of the year, I was given notice because our company was having a major, major reorganization. So
Yeah.
my position, along with many of my colleagues' positions, were eliminated. So in a situation like that, it did give me time to think, was,
Was
related
that
to
a
your
good
question,
move?
was that the right move? Because even my husband's like,
Yeah.
oh, we should have stayed in
Lots changed in
but
the last 5 years.
hindsight, right? So
Yeah.
to say, I can look at it either way. I'll
Yeah.
answer it that way. I can look at it was a good move because the hospital system actually where I ended up getting my transplant was from another list that I had gone on, and it
Mm,
was in the Philadelphia area, which is where I live now.
yeah.
But who knows? Had I stayed in Maryland, maybe I would have gotten the the kidney
Right.
from Hopkins. So it's hard to say because I did have a fantastic surgical team. The transplant care team after my transplant has just been phenomenal. I mean, the way you're treated because it is such a serious surgery, right? Having a
Yeah.
transplant, and there's so much you have to do to take care of yourself, and just because you have a transplant doesn't mean that okay, I'm good.
Right.
There's still you still have to maintain the transplant. There's medication that I take to make sure I don't experience any rejection of my organ, and we keep tabs on my kidney function as well as all my other functions in my body.
Yeah.
So it's still something to maintain for the rest of my life, and hopefully this kidney lasts a really long time. Um,
Yeah.
but
I wish
but
that for
yeah, so
you as
that question is
well.
really hard for me to answer.
Well, I think it gives good perspective though, because
Yeah.
you really are looking at this from a couple different angles. Like, yes, you want to
Hmm.
move because your career, like that takes you to the next level,
Yeah.
but sometimes you have to take a step back. And that's why I put it in the
Yes.
framework because I felt like that
Hmm.
was the missing piece. Like,
Hmm.
everybody talks about the stress of a move and like they say it's
Hmm.
second only to divorce, which I think there's another thing in there too that it's like, no, it's maybe third too. But I think that looking at it from a mental and physical health perspective, like
Hmm.
you moving boxes while you're connected to a catheter, like that could have pushed, if you fell or something, that could have pushed it out of place. Like there are so
Hmm.
many things to consider. And your health and your mental health are two things that people use as like in hindsight. right? They don't
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
upfront think about that. Like I was going to move
Hmm.
in the fall last year, and
Hmm.
I know you know this, but like I ruptured the discs in my back. I had, all kinds of problems. I was working with a dentist getting my new tooth put in, and like
Hmm.
all of the things that I had to experience last year. And then I lost my dogs. And so that was a level of grief that I had never in a million years anticipated,
Hmm.
experienced. Like it was a whole different thing. And when I took a step back, I was like, yes, I want, like, why do I want to move back to Chicago right at this moment?
Hmm.
Well, it's because my community is there and the people that help me and take care of me and support me are there. And I just needed to feel that love, and I needed to feel
Hmm.
secure and safe, and like things were going to be okay. But the easiest thing that somebody could do is move, but the hardest thing somebody can do is move. I mean,
Yes.
it's something that you have to take into consideration. And so I like I had so many times before. I mean, it's my framework. Like I knew that I needed to go through it, but I was
Hmm.
resisting it because I knew I needed to go through it. And I knew it wasn't the right
Yeah.
time. And I think sometimes if people were to take a step back and say, like, yes, this sounds like a really great opportunity. So let me see if
Hmm.
the other boxes are checking and see how big those
Hmm.
boxes are. And if I should
Yes.
maybe pursue this or wait. Because it doesn't feel like, waiting a year feels like an eternity, but I'll tell
Hmm.
you, like, I hurt my back on April 19th of last year, which is we are a week away from that happening. Actually, we'll probably, when I post this, I'll probably be on the 19th. So it will be the
Yes.
1 year anniversary of when that happened. In the moment, it felt like a year would be an eternity when they said
Mm.
that this is about how long it was going to take me to heal. And now I look back and I'm like, holy cow, that flew by, flew by. So there's something to be said for the perspective that you gave, because maybe it wasn't worth it, but you also did spend 5 great years at that company,
Hmm.
where now
Yeah.
you can look back and say, like, maybe that helped me get the job that I'm in today, or going to
Hmm.
be. So a little
Hmm.
side note too about Trisha. I think about a year ago was when our group has been meeting for well over a year at this point,
Yeah, I
from
think in the
DC.
fall,
It was like
is
it's
like our
been.
anniversary.
Yeah, so I think about a year and a half probably. And when we
Hmm.
first the way we met Natalie and Kara, who's also, like, we have this accountability pod that we meet with every Sunday morning, or as many most Sunday mornings we all meet. We were creating digital courses. Um I haven't released mine yet. I think Natalie's the only one that actually has released it, but what's cool
Hmm.
about that is, like, when you were telling us your story and how you wanted to do coaching and the whole wellness, like all of this stuff, we were all like, you have to do this, you have to put this out there in the world, because I think so many people are going through this, and this is such a big deal. Which leads me to what we're doing, or what you're doing, what launches like later this month, and why I'm so excited
Hmm.
to put this out there. So can you please tell us what the summit is that you're doing, why you're giving it away for free? There are some amazing women that are going to be speaking on this panel that you could charge a lot of money for. Um, so tell us about the summit.
Oh, well, I thought you never asked. But thank you for doing this special podcast. So I am doing a virtual summit. It starts on April 29th, and the name of it is Success Beyond Sickness. And we're providing unique strategies to align professional growth with optimal wellness despite chronic health challenges. So and basically that's my career in a nutshell. And that's basically what the summit is all about. So I've curated over 30 women who are in various professions, who have all experienced some type of chronic condition or disease or disability. And miraculously, they've figured out a way to heal themselves with or without medical care. And now they have pivoted or transitioned, whatever word you want to use, figured out a way to take all of their learnings and experience to help other people. Very similar to what Mariette is doing with all of her experience in all of the, what was it, 18 moves in 24
Yeah.
years of career life
Yeah.
that you've had in helping other people with their goals and achieving those goals, but in a quicker, less painful way than we've experienced in growing our careers. And the stories are inspiring, heartwarming, heart-wrenching, motivational, but you'll learn something from every single one of them, even if you only listen to one speaker. But as I mentioned, it's starting on April 29th, so we're launching in 2 weeks, and it runs for 14 days. So every day we're releasing 2 interviews, and some days will be very special because we'll have 3 interviews.
Woohoo.
We'll have some bonus days with 3 interviews, and yeah, you can register at successbeyondsickness.com. And that's and it's free, as Mariette mentioned, it's free. And I hope you can join us. You're sure to learn something from one of our, if not all, of our awesome women speakers. So thank you for
Now,
letting me talk about
yeah.
it.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited for this. Now, if
Oh, I'm
somebody
sorry.
can't
Can
make
I
the
just say
summit,
one more thing? I'm
yeah,
sorry to interrupt you. I just want to say
yeah,
one more thing. So yes, Mariette is one of our esteemed speakers, and we also have Natalie Luke, Dr. Natalie Luke, as one of our speakers, and Kara Taylor from Kara Taylor Coaching.
yeah.
She's one of our speakers too. So that gives you an idea of the caliber of women and talent that we have on our panel or in our summit. So be sure to tune in or register at
Yes, we got to register.
successbeyondsickness.com, and hope to see you join us. So
Well,
sorry,
if
go ahead.
somebody can't make, well, if somebody can't make the
Oh,
summit, is there a way that they can watch it long term or like after, because I know it's a
yes,
couple of days.
absolutely. So if you can't watch it when we release the interviews in the morning, so it'll be around 9 a.m. Eastern time that we release the interviews every day starting on the 29th. If you can't make it, we will have a 24-hour replay, so you can catch it there. But if none of that works for you, I also have an option where you can obtain lifetime access to
Mhm.
all of these wonderful interviews. If you register before April 29th, it's only $37. And you get to have, it's like I said, over 30 plus fantastic sessions. Well, you'll learn lots about healing and wellness. So we talk a lot about mindset. Uh, we have women speaking about nutrition and neuroscience. So there's just, if this is your thing, there
Yeah.
is so many juicy topics to listen to and watch and learn from. And then if you can't register by the 29th and take advantage of the $37 deal, you can still catch it later, and it'll maybe cost a little bit more, but I encourage you to register when you hear this,
Yes.
and we hope to see you there.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted, if somebody was experiencing significant health challenges, but also still wanted to, grow in their career, you do one-on-one coaching as well, correct?
Yes, I
Okay.
do. I
Yeah.
absolutely do. And I'm happy to even just, chat with someone and, hear about their goals and what they're challenged with, and, offer some helpful advice, but also see if there's, something I can do to help you grow in your career. And you can just email me at Trisha at trishatayan.com, and we can set up some time and have that little chat.
I love it. So, trishatayan.com is your website. I know we can find you on LinkedIn as well. Are you on other social
Yes,
media
LinkedIn
outlets?
is the best place.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
LinkedIn is the best place, and I'm the only Trisha Tayan, as I know, on LinkedIn. So it's Tayan is my last name, and it's Trisha with SH. Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. I'd love to connect with you and hear about your challenges and help you out.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that you're doing this. I think timing is everything. It's
Mm,
we're going into the summer and it's one of those where people are like, okay, what am I going to do with my life? I want to get out there.
yeah.
But it's really hard to do it when you're experiencing health challenges of
Hmm.
any form or fashion. So I think this is
Yeah.
going to be amazing. I hope you do it again in the
Oh, thank
fall.
you.
Maybe we do an in-person one down the road. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This special podcast
Oh,
episode is being released the week before intentionally. So if you want to sign up and it's something that you're interested in, please go to the
mhm.
website and register for it so we have an accurate count of everybody. You may see an interview with me in there such a bonus. So that's exciting too. But thank you so much for being on the show, Trisha. I know people are going to resonate with this because moving is hard, but moving with an illness or some sort of injury is even harder. So it's an important message.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So glad you were here. So, all right, everyone. Thank you so much. And as always, keep moving forward towards your dreams. Bye for now. Well, I could go on forever and ever about moving you closer to your dreams, but I probably should save some thoughts for the next episode. A big thanks goes out to you for making time for me today. And making time for me, you're making time for future you, and we're both grateful. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to the podcast, download the episodes, and leave me a 5-star review. I would really appreciate it. In return, if you go to my website, marriottsonthemove.com, and register for the Monday mailer, I'll send you a free Fred workbook to get your journey started. This is also where you can find all the show notes and all the ways to get in touch with me. A special thanks goes out to Rogue Media for its wisdom and partnership. Until next time, friends, keep moving forward towards your dreams. Oh, and the legal stuff. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. I am a certified coach, not a licensed therapist, and this is not meant to replace the professional advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals. This is solely my perspective based on my own experience and training. Okay, now it's over. For reals. Bye for now.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.